Welcome back to Playing Voodoo. I'm your host Derek, and today I'll be recapping Survivor 44 Episode 5. Unfortunately, Alex and Martin won't be joining me today, so I'll be doing the pod solo. Let's get straight to it. We were this close, yes, we were this close to seeing Josh possibly go home this episode, and that would have marked our entire first round that we did in our Season 44 draft. Yes, in the first round, Martin, with the first pick, drafted Sarah, voted out episode 4. I, Derek, drafted Claire, and she went 2, and she went out episode 3, voted out. And then Alex drafted Josh, who's now on Martin's team via trade. He drafted Josh 3rd, and Josh was on. He was pretty much, it looked like he was on the brink of going out this episode at the hands of both Yam Yam and Carolyn. It was very close, but that tribe, Tika, did not go to tribal council because Matthew pulled himself from the game. Yes, for those of you that have been watching all season, already well aware of Matthew's injury. Suffered first episode of the season, day 2. Was climbing a rock and fell. Possibly a dislocated, separated shoulder, something of that nature, I would assume. And it sucks. It really sucks. He was playing very, very hard. Found an idol. Went home with an idol now that I just think about it, and planted a fake idol that Jamie is currently holding. Successfully played his shot in the dark in the case that he got Brandon to use an idol on the first episode for the first vote, I guess. But yeah, it just sucks. You never want to see someone pulled from the game from injury, but he fought hard, even dug through his injury during challenges when probably wasn't the best choice for him at that time. But now he's decided to pull himself from the game. And yeah, I just want to wish him the best. Maybe we see him on a future season. Definitely see that in the cards for him if Survivor wants him back, and I'm sure they do, because they gave him quite the screen time for these first 5 episodes. So yeah, we'll see. So now I want to get into who I believe is the frontrunner of this season of Survivor. And that's Dr. Will. Yes, we've seen Dr. Will. He won season 2 of Big Brother. And Dr. Will's made his return. He's voted out 2 people from this game, Bruce and now Matthew. And yeah, it just seems like Dr. Will has pretty much provided the biggest mark on this game and what might be coming forward. And to be honest, I don't even check like subreddits or anything like that. But all jokes aside, I was told by either Martin or Alex that there's going to be another possible injury later on in this game in which someone's going to be pulled. So 3 people will be pulled to the game via injury. That is awful. So yeah, all jokes aside about Dr. Will being my front runner, I do want to get into what went down this episode. So, we started out with the Tika tribe. Yam Yam, very shocked what went down at Tribal Council. And he sees a different player in Carolyn. He now sees that she's dangerous, willing to do what it takes. And she left him out of that last vote, voting out Sarah, in which it was a 2-2 vote. And Josh played his idol to save himself, leaving Yam Yam, Carolyn, and Sarah vulnerable, and Sarah went home. So Yam Yam doesn't know what to do. He obviously wants to still work with Carolyn, as we will see, I'll talk about later on in this episode, but at the same time, she blindsided him. And then Carolyn, from her perspective, she's torn. Her heart says, let's work with Yam Yam. That's who I vibe with. That's who I want to be with. But her head says, let's go with Josh. And we saw this episode, she went with her brain, she worked with Josh. Even got Josh to show her the idol clue that he had, which becomes a topic of conversation later on this episode, which I will get to. Big, probably the biggest thing that happened this episode was what went down with those 3 players being Carolyn, Danny, and Brandon. Yeah, that was pretty much fun. That was pretty fun. And then Ratu, one thing I'll mention this episode, we get a bit of Ratu, is Carson. He's building relationships. Seems like he's fitting in more with that tribe, with the likes of Matthew, who is now pulled from the game, and Kane, nerding out over Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. I can relate. I am not a big fan of Star Wars, like some are, but I do enjoy Lord of the Rings. It's very entertaining. Yeah. So Carson, I'm keeping an eye on him. Seems like someone that is a focal point of this season. We keep seeing a lot of Carson, whether it was on Tika or Ratu, and yeah, he's definitely someone to watch as a potential winner in my estimation. Let's get back to the Soka tribe. A few things that I do want to mention about Soka this episode prior to the immunity challenge. So it seems like the tribe is still very cohesive now that they've subtracted Josh and added Jamie. They're still meditating. Yes, they're meditating on the beach. Also, very cool that Danny practices Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I just find that pretty neat. I'm a huge fan of the UFC, so just knowing that a Survivor player is out there practicing a mixed martial art is awesome. And we got a little more insight on Danny as well, his young daughter, only 4 months old. And I know that this comparison's probably been made already. I made this comparison with Alex and Martin in the previous episode, but he honestly reminds me a lot of Tony. I believe Tony also had a young child or a child on the way when he first played in Cagayan. And yeah, Danny, how can you not root for him? He's a very entertaining and very likable guy, very personable, and I could see him being the winner of the season. So, last few things I want to mention about Soka tribe. Jamie, yes, Jamie's the new face of the Soka tribe, like I just mentioned. She's digging the new vibes of her tribe. However, there's one person that's not really trying to talk strategy with her, and that's Matt. That's a bad sign. She compared it as everyone else is running a marathon and he's learning to crawl, which is pretty accurate from the depiction we've gotten from the producers so far. Yeah, I mean, Matt's obviously not... He doesn't have a vote. He didn't vote his first tribal council, and he doesn't have a vote moving forward, which I will mention as we hit the merge. I will preview that a bit later on in this episode. So, will Jamie work with Matt and Franny moving forward? I don't know. She obviously hasn't picked up on Franny and Matt being quite close to each other. At least it wasn't mentioned. Franny said that she hasn't picked up on it, so I'll take her word for it. But yeah, it's quite interesting to say the least. But there's not really much more to talk about for these tribes because we know that a merge is coming. So let's just talk about what went down at the challenge. So Tika loses the challenge. Honestly, I'm just gonna be upfront. The challenge, when I used to watch Survivor, it used to be one of the things I would look forward to, and now I pretty much just want to fast forward through them. I know production spends quite some time on it, but I just feel like there's no creativity within the challenge. It's always gonna end with some sort of puzzle, and it's just I don't know. They need to do something different, to be honest. And I hope they would learn from what Australian Survivor is doing with having some head-to-head challenges. That would be pretty neat, but that would also... You'd have to have 2 tribes instead of 3, and I don't know if US Survivor is ever going to go back to 2 tribes. That will be... Yeah, we'll see. We will see. But Tika loses as Ratu and Soka both win. Ratu finishing first, and then Soka. So Ratu chooses the 3 people to go on the journey. They choose Brandon. Well, pretty much is the choice for their own tribe. And it seems like he has some decision on the other people that are going to go on the journey with him. And Danny is the one chosen for Soka. Carolyn chosen for Tika. But that's not the only thing that happens right there. We see medical mentioned by Jeff that they're going to look at Matthew's injury because he's been sitting out of challenges, and honestly, I think if we're talking about people that sat out of challenges, that medical should have looked at Claire for an injury because she sat out of 3 challenges. Is that right? Yeah. So maybe we should have saw Dr. Will episode 3 because Claire. There must have been something wrong if she's sitting out several challenges like Matthew was. All jokes aside, yeah. So Brandon, Danny, and Carolyn go on their journey, and there's no twist in this game. It's just essentially a communal afternoon with each other in which they get a feast and just chat. And this is where we got the most from this episode. Yes, the most happened at this episode with how we can see the game's gonna move going forward. And Brandon and Danny, instant bond. Snap of the fingers, boom. Just knew immediately that they're gonna work with each other. They're broing out. But early on, what we saw is Carolyn reveals Josh had an idol that he could use up to the merge, or she didn't say has. And Danny and Brandon deduced that means Carson and Jamie also have a similar advantage in their back pockets. So, most of the feast, we see Danny and Brandon just bonding, and Carolyn trying to work her way into the combo, but not really. Danny saying he wants to work with Brandon. Brandon saying he wants to work with Danny. How they want to work with the athletic, muscular guys, and that Josh is someone that they'd want to keep. They ask Carolyn who she wants to keep, and she doesn't have an answer. She kind of just wants to make it to the merge. Is pretty much what she said. And I found it interesting that Danny would reveal that he would want to work with someone like Josh. I mean, obviously he was with Josh on the Soka Beach, and they were working together, but yeah, it's just very interesting that he would say that knowing that Tika was going to tribal council later that episode. Yeah, it's just very bold. That's probably the one mistake I've seen Danny make so far. He was opening up more. You would honestly think that the contestants had some beers, the way they were opening up to each other during that feast, but they didn't, from the looks of it. And Brandon, speaking of that, being candid himself, says he wants to keep Carolyn in the game because she hasn't proven herself in challenges. Wow. wow. That's that's one way to say I want to keep you in the game because I think you're weak. Yeah, Carolyn keeps getting underestimated. Hell, I know I've underestimated her my fair share in these podcast episodes, but to be honest, she probably is the front runner right now to win this game. She's been the darling of the season and the most entertaining from a TV standpoint that we've had this season, other than Yam Yam probably. And I'm not sure that was a smart part on Brandon to say that out loud. Maybe he could have thought that to himself, but said, "Hey, I want to work with you." So yeah, very strange from Brandon and Danny during that feast. Honestly, the only one that comes out looking good from that is Carolyn. And we get back to the Tika tribe. Yes, Tika, like I previously stated, lost immunity challenge, so they are set to go to tribal council. Carolyn returns immediately. In my head, I'm like, he's fucked. He's done for. Because Danny mentioned that he would want to work with him. And we see Carolyn even say to Yam Yam, "Hey, we're good. Just mouthing the words to him. Still unsure how Yam Yam is going to vote. That's what the main thing that we got prior to no tribal council from Tika. But we did get Josh. His lie unraveled before our eyes. Earlier in the episode, he told Yam Yam immediately after tribal council that he has another idol to protect him. Come another tribal council, he still plays up that he has another idol, even created a fake idol, which I believe he used the beads from Tree Mail, which was pointed out by Yam Yam. Hey, this is a fake idol. These are the beads from Tree Mail. And even Carolyn points out that the note that Josh ends up showing Yam Yam and Carolyn is the same note that Josh showed Carolyn 2 days prior to the Sarah vote out. So yeah, Josh is full of shit. Essentially, he gets called out for his play, and if I had to guess, he's probably the one that was going to go home that episode. Yam Yam was definitely in the middle, so it could have gone either way. He was either going to work with Josh, work with Carolyn. I definitely think he was going to work with Carolyn at that point, especially if Josh is still lying to him about a fake idol. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on what went down this episode. It was, I mean, no one was voted out, so yeah, not much happened on that front. But I will say, I do want to talk about my superlatives for the episode. Let's get into that. So, worst move, best move, and next boot. Worst move of the episode, hands down. I mean, it has to either be Danny or Brandon at the feast with Carolyn saying, "Hey, Brandon saying, Carolyn, I think you haven't proven yourself in challenges, so I want to work with you." That's definitely not a good thing to say to someone straight to their face. And or Danny saying he wanted to work with Josh. So I guess, knowing that Tika was going to Tribal Council, I guess the worst one is definitely Brandon saying that he wanted to work with, or he wants to keep Carolyn because she's hasn't proven herself in challenges. That's definitely, yeah, the worst move is Brandon saying that. So that gets my vote. Best move of the episode, or actually, worst move of the episode. I just mentioned it as well. Josh's fake idol using the same clue. That's pretty bad, to be honest. But yeah, that's pretty bad as well. They're all three collectively the worst move. Josh, Danny, and Brandon. That whole sequence of what went down. Worst move of the episode. Yeah, it was all pretty bad. Best move of the episode. So the best move of the episode, I think, is we didn't really get to see a move played, so we don't know. Maybe Josh would have worked with Yam Yam, or Yam Yam would have worked with Josh. Maybe Yam Yam would have worked with Carolyn. So I can't really say anything on that Tika front. And we didn't get much from Ratu and Soka, so I guess the only thing that I'll mention is best move of the episode is Danny, or Brandon, I guess, choosing Danny for the voyage, although it ended up being just a feast. So yeah, I guess Brandon and Danny getting to bond prior to merge is good for them in their game. Maybe not in front of Carolyn, as I don't see Carolyn working with that duo moving forward. But yeah, I guess the best move is Brandon choosing Danny for the trip. Yeah, there's that by default. There's not really something that stood out in my mind as the best move. Yeah. Next boot. Everything's in flux. I really don't know what's going to go down. We could get... Yeah. So I guess before I get into the next boot, I should probably lay out how the advantages we currently have in this game. Fake idols, real idols, no votes, all of that. Everything. Extra votes. So from Ratu, that tribe, we know Brandon still has a fake idol from what he found in the birdcage, but he knows it's fake. And Lauren, she herself has an extra vote she banked after episode 1 after not voting. Kane has nothing, and Carson has an idol that I believe was only good for this episode. Could be wrong, but it says once all castaways are on the same beach, then it's not good. Although, if they separate the castaways next episode, maybe it's still good. So it might be good one more vote, but that's about it. Because we've seen them usually separate the castaways onto different beaches after the challenges happen or prior to the challenges. So yeah, that could very well happen. For Soka, we know Danny has a real idol. He planted a fake idol in which Matt has. Franny has nothing, and Heidi has nothing. And then Jamie has a real idol, same one as Carson, that Josh played in episode 4. which I believe it might still be valid one more tribal, but to be honest, it wouldn't be valid beyond that. And she also has a fake idol that was planted by Matthew, who is now out of the game. No one knows that it's fake, and yeah, it's going to be a shocker once. I believe that's going to come back to bite her later on in the season, so that's a storyline to follow. And then we have Tika. Yes, Tika. Josh has nothing. I mean, I guess he has a fake idol that he knows it's fake. And Yam Yam and Carolyn knows it's fake, so the power in that is nothing. And then we know that Carolyn has a real idol and Yam Yam has nothing. One thing I didn't mention, Matt on Soka, he also has no vote next tribal council. Yes, we have, what is it now, 12 people left in this game, and he's not going to vote. It could play a big factor into what goes down next tribal council. No one knows he doesn't have 2 votes. I believe he only told Franny if he did. I believe he did tell Franny. So that will be interesting to follow and what goes down. Honestly, I really can't predict who's going to go next. From the sound of it, I would probably say someone we haven't really heard from too much. So maybe someone like Kane goes next episode. I don't really see someone from Soka going unless they try to... Actually, no, yeah. They might try to break up that duo of Matt and Franny that we've been seeing. We've seen blossoming into more than just a friendship. And yeah, so I'm going to say Matt. Matt is my prediction for who goes next episode. They break up that showmance that is brewing. So those are my superlatives for the episode. I want to say thank you guys for listening for this episode. And be sure to tune in to our Survivor Season 44 recaps. We're going to continue covering this season. It's been a blast. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at PlayingVoodooPod. And like or subscribe wherever you're listening, whether that be Spotify or YouTube. Appreciate the support. We want to hear from you guys. Comment down below. Probably in the YouTube comments if you can. Who do you think is going to win this season? It's turned out quite different from what we expected, obviously, because our first round picks are almost all gone or near the bottom. So yeah, we want to hear from you guys, what you guys think. And this is Playing Voodoo, where split vote is not safe.